ask the panelists to join us first. The next speakers are going to talk about more the community aspect. I'll introduce myself. I am the president of the Taiwan Social Welfare League. I served as legislators, and now I am in the social work private sector. I also work with the intellectually ill association, and also the parents of the intellectually ill, and I founded several associations. Today, we are talking about the social development strategy and the application to practice fields for persons with disabilities. I will first introduce our three speakers, and then we will start the session. First of all, I'd like to introduce from Hong Kong, Mr. Liang Da-wei David from Fukang Society. Please welcome him. Fukang Society, Hong Kong. I visited them a dozen years ago. They work with the the mentally ill and also, as well as the physically ill. He has a master's degree from sociology and also with cognition disorder. He has worked with Fuhang for 30 years. I am very familiar with Hong Kong, She Lian and Ming Ai, and various organizations, and also the Salvation Army. These are all well-established organizations. Under the leadership of the British government, they had very successful and thriving social work. The next person is Ma Han-zhong. He is the director of Eden Vocational Rehabilitation Service Resources Center for individuals with disability in Taichung. He also has a master's degree from Asia University. He specializes on employment evaluation of individuals with disabilities, and established commercial resource network, and perform skill instruction and evaluation. Originally, the vocational center and disability center are separate, and now they combine their work to include employment evaluation. So Mr. Ma is very specialized in this area. The third speaker is Ms. Liang Shanzhen. She is a social service supervisor at the Family Welfare Service Center in Taichung, and also from the Eden Foundation. She has a master's degree from Donghai University in social work, and she works with the Xiangyuan Center and also the Eden Foundation. She served as a social worker there. So all these are practitioners in the community. They will talk with us about community service. We will start with Mr. Liang, Service Director Liang, talking about the topic of utilizing hiking activity to promote the mental well-being of persons in recovery. I think this is a relatively new topic. And for the other panelists, okay, so you're going to speak over there, and you can remain seated if he's going to sit.
I appreciate the moderator's introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is David Long. I come from the Fukang Society of Hong Kong. Last year, I participated in another event, and then today I'm here again to work with you and to share with you my experience with this conferences sponsored, organized by Taiwan's Eden Foundation, and I'm very happy to have this opportunity to share with you, to interact with you. And my topic is about this hiking, using hiking activities to promote the mental well-being of persons in recovery. So as you can tell, my Mandarin is somewhat limited, so please bear with me. This full home society has been around for 40 years, and we have a number of service staff, and we provide all kinds of rehab activities. I myself used to work as social worker, so this has been my career, my aspiration. So today, I would like to talk about these. This is my outline. And before that, I would like to talk about the overall trend of such rehab for this mentally ill, because there was a time back in the 1950s, there were medications and then it is associated with a different type of systems that evolved from a different type of medication and different approaches. But overall, they try to improve the life of the people who are mentally handicapped. And because these patients, they tend to be very passive, and also they lack of social skills, sometimes limited their interaction with the people. And then back in the 1990s, this kind of recovery ideas has become very fashionable. And in recent years, this has become a leading paradigm. Recovery has become a leading paradigm of our social works. And that means we should not restrict our work on medications. So the staff, and they need to respect the potential of your service subject. And during the process, you also try to identify the advantage and also inspire the hope, the confidence in your clients. So this kind of work actually is a very similar. In fact, this is coincide with the kind of ideas about the advantage-based empowerment. And over the past 20 years, we do this kind of recovery, self-efficacy. What does that mean? Self-efficacy. Self-efficacy actually comes from the idea proposed by Bandura. Bandura said self-efficacy is a kind of a perception about your own capability. And for a person with a good self-efficacy, usually has a more healthy attitude to look at oneself. And this person tend to be more active, more motivated to look at the world. So this is a positive cycle. But what does that have to do with the mentally ill people? And let's look at the challenges these mentally ill people face, because everybody has their own unique symptoms and circumstances. So and we have to look at all kinds of challenges they are facing in order to appreciate the difficulties they have to face. And typically they have poorer health conditions, and 60% of people with severe mental conditions have other chronic conditions, and they also have a suicide rate 12 times of the average people, and they have a shorter lifespan. So in the face of a very hostile environment, these restrictions actually cause a lot of obstacles when they try to move out, when they try to step out of the comfort zone. So we have to help them to overcome these. And we found out that working out, exercise actually improve a person's physical and mental well-being. Although we all know that working out or exercise, there are all kinds of benefits, but for the mentally ill, that they cannot compare with the average people in terms of the frequency or the intensity of their exercise. There was a research indicating 43% of these people with mental conditions, they rarely work out, they rarely exercise. So it's very urgent that we help to promote the working out, exercise for these mentally ill people. And so we started in 2006. We have this in a Midway House. There was 10 years ago. We have this working out team, and then we promote hiking, short distance hikings to help them, and this was very popular, and for the two reasons. Number one, this has a good geographic advantage because Hong Kong has 24 parks and dozens of hiking trails. So they are very scenic routes. So for people just to walk around, and it's not very difficult. So for people with average physical capability, they could take. And this year I went to Yilan on the northeastern corner of Taiwan, and I enjoyed it. I found it very attractive. And the second reason that hiking is popular was because of this the friendship you conjure up during the hiking, that you have a right social connection. So but just by hiking and walking together with the people who we are familiar with, and besides this is not very strenuous working out, so you could pick the type of trails that's proper for your own physical condition and physical strength. And last year we have this kind of Hong Kong exercise, and we attracted hundreds of people, and we put together this book, and there's a small booklet, and this is hiking trails for you. And so I have brought a few copies of this booklet. This will be very interesting to exchange ideas with our fellow hikers in Taiwan. And this book is called The Journey Starts at Your First Step here. And over there are 16 stories, and including the 16 hiking trails. And because this kind of hiking trails, they have up and downs, and sometimes you have to make sharp turns and so on. And although you are walking on these hiking trails with your friends, with your peers, but ultimately you still have to overcome your own physical handicap in order to get to the end of the hiking trail. And so these 16 stories, 16 anecdotes included in this handbook is very educational, very informative about how these people, they have overcome all kinds of obstacles in order to improve their own problems, and they found out this helps to improve their body shape and improve their physical strength, and also improve their social networks, so help them to connect with the community. And besides, I would like to share with you our experience of organizing such hiking projects. I wonder if you have working out, if you have this habit of working out. I hope so. And for us, people who have with normal health conditions, it's not that easy try to establish a good habit of working out. And it's not, but for us, we want to persuade people with mental illness, trying to get them to work out. So at first, you have to gain their trust. You have to earn their trust, and then tell them the benefits of working out, of going out and to exercise. And then, of course, they would think, well, it's not safe for me in my physical or mental condition. But then you try to convince them, and this will be very safe because you are going to be there to accompany them. And overall, they found this kind of performance accomplishments. They are very happy to have accomplished these following items. Number one, they think they have been able to accomplish something that they did not know that they could achieve. And this with the first success, and then come with the second success. So you have to design the kind of a hiking trail that's appropriate for your particular clients. If you set the goal too high, they are going to intimidate this client, and then they may not want to go. at all. But if you set the goal too low, then it's too easy. Then they will find it boring. They will not want to go again and again. So there's a staff. We have to use the debriefing to explain to them. And then with the interaction with the question and answer sessions, you encourage these clients to tell their stories, tell what they think they have accomplished, what kind of a problem they thought they had before going out, and what kind of a satisfaction they have gained after going on higher. And then you also have a vicarious experience. Vicarious means that you will be able to appreciate what other people are feeling, and that's very important because our staff, in the beginning, they try to build this mutual support, mutual learning atmosphere, and then you encourage this client to say what they feel after they have accomplished hiking. So you just maybe you set the role models, and then everybody see their own potential from the role model, so they say, if he can do it, so can I. And then you use this verbal persuasion, because using the verbal statement, you have to watch closely the performance of each individual client, and then when there are positive performance, even though when this is only a little bit, you have to shower them with the praises, and then encourage them, saying, wow, this is wonderful, wow, this is remarkable. So and then so they will be able to say to themselves, yes, I can do it. And then number 4 is to cultivate and regulate the emotion, because if they have a stable mental situation, they have a better control of themselves, emotionally and physically. So our staff have to evaluate the mental and the physical state of each participant. So before you go, you have to explain what is going to happen along the trail, so that they can minimize the anxiety about what's coming up on the way to the end. And then safety and risk control is very important, and the staff have to go on the trails beforehand to scout out what this trail entails, and then set up some of the rest points and retreat routes in case something happens. And then you also have to watch out what kind of clothing, what kind of equipment people wear, and you also want to create a very light-hearted, interesting atmosphere. For example, you could design some games, or you could share jokes, and then from time to time you could sit down and share some snacks and drinks, and then play some games and taking photos. And afterwards, you could enjoy watching the photo together, and then share what you have learned from this hiking trail, so that they can relive this happy, pleasant experience again and again, and then to sustain their interest in going out on hiking with you. So I have 2 concrete. Number 1, hiking activities are very positive to the recovery of people with mental or physical conditions. But if you are going to promote such kind of hiking activities, the staff needs to pay extra attention in showing your care and your respect, and provide the support throughout the way, step by step. And then if you also have to sustain their interest and their motivation. So during this hiking trail, you want to generate the kind of a very happy atmosphere, enjoyable atmosphere, and at the same time, you also have to be vigilant about the potential risk. So risk management is equally important. And then you want to set a very reasonable goal, and then to keep them, to give them this success after success. But of course, you have to do a lot of preparation, and then you have to do the debriefing, so that they will know what to anticipate, and then to set the goal for themselves, and then at the same time minimize the anxieties about the unknown, about this new trail they are going to hike. So overall, this is quite positive. And then you can see, usually for us, we sometimes set the two ambitious goals in the beginnings, and then but after a while we lose interest. And but for this for your clients, that takes a special design.
So he shared with us how hiking can help to alleviate the illness of the mentally ill and participate in the society. This is the first time I've heard that exercise can be used as a kind of therapy. Indeed, if you set goals which are too high, it would be intimidating to them. But you should set up training plan or education plan according to individual conditions. That way it would be easier to achieve the target. With your clients, if you raise goals, set up goals that are too high, our clients will feel frustrated in not achieving them. So in his experience, he used exercising to help these persons recover and step into the society again. Great model. Thank you for sharing that with us. We will keep all the questions together. So next, I'd like to invite Director Ma from Eden, Taichung, to talk about capacity building of people with mental retardation, exploring rebuilding mode and process. So at the Vocational Rehab Center at Taichung, he's going to share his experience there. Hello, everyone. I am Ma Hanzhong from Eden. I'm glad to have an opportunity to present to you capacity building for the mentally ill. Over the last 2 days, we've heard experience from several countries, including from the Philippines and India, about the micro businesses. We also saw some enterprises, for example, for New Taipei City, the single parent account, and also for the some family welfare project. We can see employment is critical to everyone, especially to the disabled. The reason I say this is because, as Mr. Liang said, the disabled persons we serve have a lot of experience with failure and bullying ever since they were young. As Mr. Liang said, it's hard to keep up with exercising because we have too little experience in success, and we get a lot of discouragement from those around us. So for the disabled, employment is very important for them in terms of sense of achievement and for them to overcome their current predicament. For Eden, we not only want to help them with employment, we want to go further. Perhaps we can help them get a job, but it's only for a week, a month, or even changing several jobs, moving between jobs over the course of a year. So from this project, we try to see their potential. So once they see their potential, we help them to live with dignity, and they can step out into the public and demonstrate they are just like everyone else. Perhaps that's a little idealistic because they still have to carry the name of the disabled, of their disability with them. But in our capacity enhancing project, there's a special feature. It's our timeline and our method. It's different from regular government project. First of all, in terms of timeline, usually a case is closed after 3 months of stable employment. Second, usually it's a point relationship. how do I build a relationship with a disabled person? How do I build a good relationship with the employer? If he washes dishes in a hotel, how do I build a relationship based on the dishwashing task? But in our capacity building project, we want to connect the dots into lines or even planes and look at the whole network. The third part is the method. In terms of methodology, for employment for the disabled means building a facilitating environment in the workplace to cultivate natural supporters who can always offer support in the workplace when needed. So within the job, within the workplace to provide that. And also in the task design, the circulation, and also assisting equipment, so aids. But these are still passive in nature. What we want to do is to cultivate motivation. Once they are motivated to work, they would want to succeed themselves. This would be intrinsic in our clients. So I would like to start with a 2-minute film as an introduction. So this is our Dream Come True project. I want to thank Mr. Wang for his counseling, for helping me go into the workplace. And we are able to prove that we can demonstrate ourselves in the workplace as well. Please applaud for him. And his idol is Gao Guohui, a baseball athlete. It's a great encouragement for me to see that he came and visited me. I admire how you swing and how you pitch. These motivate me to play. I would like to play better, and I hope you will play better too. Thank you so much. Finally, please welcome our start of pitcher today, Gao Guohui. Are you ready, Yumi? Let's count down. 3, 2, 1. And it's a strike. Great pitch. Thank you. My friends, this is something that happened in October in Taichung this year. It was a professional game, and he was able to start off the game with the first pitch. I think myself, I would never be able to go into to throw that starting pitch in my life. But quite an achievement for him. Now let's look at the macro aspect. These are some of the data. For employment rate for the disabled is 40% lower than regular people. And their unemployment rate is 2.5 times the normal people. Now the main problems for them and the main causes for them are threefold. The first one is personal factors. It includes the will to be employed and also employable skills. The second part is family factors. Some of the family members feel guilty, so they become overprotective and over-tolerating. And sometimes it becomes an indifference because they feel they cannot make a change. So we would like to use this project to give a wake-up call to the family members so they can give the proper support and care and interest to the disabled persons. On the external environment, there is a lack of work opportunities and acceptance from the employer and workplace. Taichung is separated into these districts, and Beichun district has the highest number of disabled persons in terms of proportion. And so in this study, we use the mentally disabled from this district as our subject. Like Professor Laila mentioned, we are trying to apply evidence-based research into our service. Also, we study the actions about how employment service workers can implement empowering and capacity building skills, and what kind of outcome is triggered in the end. In our actual practice helping the mentally disabled, we hear many of them say they want to be employed, but are they actually able to become employed? There's no job that's easy and no job that comes with no stress. So how do we increase their motivation, their will to become and stay employed? So by capacity building, we try to boost their motivation and their will. And also in our service, we see that we try to see if the employers or the family go through any change in mindset. This is our first year, and the outcome of the first year is going to help us improve our project next year. In developmental social work, we want to help the client with making their own decision and building their capacity. And also we believe in the intrinsic capacity of our clients. We think this belief, this faith of having capacity is very powerful. When you have a certain level of confidence and faith, I don't know if you agree, but when you have faith in yourself and you talk with the service users, they would be infected by your strength perspective, by your trust in their ability. So this generates a kind of motivation and a drive to change, so they can see value in themselves. Therefore, intervention plan is definitely not something that should be made up by specialists or by experts. We should have our clients work together on setting up their own intervention plan. We also need to work with various groups. For example, for the baseball league game, we work together with the media and the professional baseball league. This is a kind of lobbying that helped us realize the dream of the people we serve, and they feel dignity and respect in the process. Now, in terms of preparation, let's look at the simple flow chart going from evaluation, matchmaking to counseling, and finally leading in the desire. So in terms of counseling, we try to filter out the most fitting clients and family. So we work together with small employment centers. The instructors there observe their students for a long time, and they would propose those who they think are fitting for joining this project. And then we run a debriefing to tell them what they need to do and what we are going to do in the process, and they can decide whether or not they want to take part. Once they sign up, we would invite the parents individually and explain the project to them. Only upon the parents' signature will we continue with the ensuing steps. Next, we are going to develop the assessment forms based on our past experience. We also set up team consultation. For the students and parents are all included in this process because we are partners, and that also includes our coaches and our social workers. So we would be able to understand the basic data, know the basic information, and then we have a professional team assessment. Then we know what is suitable for these candidates. So we try to do matchmaking, and then we do counseling and try to lead them to come up with their own desires, their dreams. So now I will explain in further details. In the service users, for the service user, we do conduct assessment and also capacity building. So we observe them in their daily routines. And then we try to enhance their social and employable skills. For example, for interpersonal skills, like in a charity auction, they come into contact with the public. How do they better interact with the public, and also with other trainees or students in class? In the workplace, as you know, in Taiwan, it's more of an employer's market, so it's hard to find a job. But with our employment counseling, there's something very special, which is the survey user needs to lock down his thoughts every day, his emotion every day, and whatever he wants to write down. Also, the employer needs to keep a log as well. He would observe our clients' behaviors, and then we compare the two to see if there's a gap. Once there is a gap, it's a great opportunity to intervene, because the gap helps the employer better understand the disabled person. Also, the disabled person may feel discriminated by the employer, so we would find a way to communicate, things like that. So this helps us to formulate effective strategies. In terms of outcome, we also have some accompanying measures. For example, for the family, we have groups. This is for the parents to play a good supporting role, help them understand and accept the disabled person and their current employment condition. We also help with communication skills and to bring positive and strength perspectives to the parents, to build strong parent-child relationship, and have help the disabled person build self-confidence. And then we help them define their own desires. For our team, we have various experts, including social worker, the counselor, and we observe different scenarios of the candidates, and we have a meeting to decide future direction. In terms of the workplace, in the past dozen of years or so, we have worked with 100 or more businesses, and we try to find those who have more affinity, and set up a job fair with them, and we create over a dozen jobs. And this is a win-win scenario for the businesses as well, because we post their participation in our website and also on newsletter. So these businesses have very positive corporate social CSR image. And this is a TV interview for our employer, a news interview, that this employer was very happy with our client's performance. Now let's look at some of the change demonstrated by the mentally disabled person in participating in the work. We see the disabled person when he used to be upset, he would look at his peer with very respectful expression, but then gradually he starts to control his temper. And also, sometimes when he is criticized by the employee, he understands that it's not personal, it's just to help him improve. Also, the employer learns some skills in communicating with our clients. Our clients are very straightforward person. They like to feel just wearing a uniform help them feel a sense of identity. Also, peer support is very important. In our follow-up, we find that we had a client who had epilepsy episode, but their peer started to understand that all they needed was 2 or 3 minutes of rest in the lounge, and they will be just fine. And also, we have leaders who visit the client regularly, and he feels a sense of confidence and feel he can become a role model for others. In conclusion, we need to shape a warm and supportive environment in the family, in the workplace, and also in ourselves as the helpers. As the helpers, if we try to build that environment continuously, then our clients would start to have an awakening of their own strengths. We work with them as partners. As President mentioned, that rather as we look at them partners rather as subordinates, and we base our action plan on their expectations, and we work on them together. And they also need to take ownership of their own choice. So this is a poster drawn by our service user to his idol, athlete Gao Guohui. You can see a smile there and the confidence and sense of achievement that, radiating from his expression. And this is great consolation for us. Thank you.
We appreciate this very remarkable presentation. So he worked on this case, and then so throughout the process, step by step, and explained to us how he was able to achieve that. But at the same time, he also indicated the support from family members and the society, and also this aptitude test helped to design his job. So that's very helpful, and we are very happy to see such tools being utilized. Now we shall move on to the next presentation by Ms. Liang Shanzhen. She's going to talk about how to be your child's buddy, how to be your child's playmate, and enjoy the life with your child. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm from Taichung's family service sector, and I'm an employee of Eden. I think I would like to have an excellent time control as the former speaker, Mr. Ma. And here we talk about be your child's buddy, be your child's playmate, and identify enjoyable moments in doing so. But to be the buddies of your child, you have to have a good partners. These are the people in the second row with a purple shirt. They are my partners in helping a child but with disabilities to grow up happily. And so they are my team members, so I'm just here to make this report on behalf of all my team members who are in purple shirt on the second row. And here is the outline of our presentations. And we found that the children's in the before school, and their activity are primarily at home, in their nursing home, and then in the rehab center. So all day long they follow their parents and to move along these 3 locations. I remember when I interviewed one parent, and the parent told me, I remember when I was a little, I was able to play the sand in front of my house. I was able to go hiking in the back, in the hill behind my house. But now, because of my child's condition, I have to drag this child along in all these 3 places. That is a home, the nursery school, and the rehab centers. I could only take him to these 3 places. That's very different from my own childhood memory. So these parents say, unless you have nothing else to do, you have to keep the child company. So the parents shows their frustration, because the parents perhaps would rather be doing something else, but she or he had to be the child's on the side and to keep the child company. But how do you improve this quality time with your child? Because the family upbringing, we know a family is an integral part of a child's development. So with such a special children or children with special needs, the interaction with family members are very crucial. So with our project design, we want the parents to have a better strategy for in-home care and for developing the child's potentials and so on. And so we want to do all these to help the parents refine their strategy when they interact with the child with special needs. And this is the whole process of how we design our programs. And in the beginning, we actually started with this kind of a philosophy. In the beginning, we get this project proposal, and then we recruit the people. And in the first class, in the introductory level, we have the 30 people. We do this lecture type of classes. And then in this 30 people gathering, we allow the parents understand what kind of a procedure, what kind of a scenario you can anticipate when this child with special needs gradually grow up. And we also tell those parents what it means to play with your child, because the parents have been taught by the hospitals, by other instructions, so they think the parents are playing some kind of a role as instructors or teachers to just guide the child. But we believe playing with the child, being your child's playmate will be more positive, will be more constructive. And so with the same piece of toys, we encourage the parents to think how you can play with your child using this piece of a toy, and how do you improve, how do you maximize the results of stimulating your child's mind or physical capabilities. So each time we have, after this lecture, after this classroom discussions, and then we ask the parents to go home and then to take pictures or take videos and share in our Line group. Line is a social app on the smartphones, and so we do this kind of sharing and the instructions, and then with a lot of interactions, we have been able to see how each parent do so. And this project ended in November of last year, and for this particular year, we no longer have the budget for this. But because the first group of parents, they already enjoyed this kind of guidance, enjoyed this kind of interaction. So we found some of these parents who are more passionate about teaching children or to be a good playmate of the child with a special needs. And then we invited such a parent to come over and to share with us for a Christmas gathering and for a New Year gatherings. And these parents will be able to guide a new group of parents by the hand how to be a good playmate of a child in special needs. And they could do some kind of a handcraft classes, or one other parents say, well, I can be the MC, master of a ceremony in this group. So we use this kind of opportunity, this kind of activities to help the parents to identify the advantage of the children. Because a lot of time the parents did not know they have such potential that could be cultivated, could be developed. And so in the beginning they were somewhat passive, but now after this kind of poking and encouraging, they have become very actively involved in organizing such activities and to work together with other parents and other children with special needs. And because once we have identified what each parent can do in this kind of event, in this kind of activities, and then we have 5 of such sessions, and eventually we found eight pairs of parents and children, and based on their child's special type of disability, or based on this parents' aptitude, we were able to do a more sophisticated design of this playtime with your child of special needs. And we have assigned 2 social workers to work with these 8 pairs of parent children. And such a type of a success story could be compiled in writing or in videotapes, and for spreading out the message for outreach program. So nowadays we hear the parents begin to say, well, in our group was able to do this, and then we want to be able to help a new parent-child pairs. So we shall see this kind of cohesion among these parent-children pairs. And in our looking back, and some parents even say, without such experience of working together, I could not have come such a long way. And so this year, although without this official funding, but we have been able to put together a very good conclusion. And so for 18 months, we social workers help these parents to build up their rapport with other families, other parent-children pairs, and then this has become a self-initiation. So these parents, they continue and went ahead and to have their own group gatherings now without us, without our official support. So, but we are very happy to see that. And I would also like to know that we'd like to share with you that these children have become the playmates of each other. So here we see some of the children with more severe disabilities, and in the second group, these are the children with light, very mild disabilities, and here are the background of a father. Some parents, they have a babysitter license, or some of them are like university teachers. So in this group 1, with children of severe disabilities, and in the beginning we were somewhat concerned. We thought we serve the children from 0 to 6 years old, but there are children 7 to 10 years old. 2 of them But the reason we accept these two children with a severe ability but much older, that's because their parents have this right aptitude and right qualifications to lead the group. And then these are the pictures. So overall, this project was executed by 18 months. So in the beginning, we help this child to somewhat to tap on a piece of toys and to have the toys react to their movement. And so this kind of the feedback mechanism was very positive in triggering the child's interest in moving the muscles and so on. And then we could also encourage the parents to identify such things to get their children to do. And there's other type of activity, such as if you tap the right button, then the light will go on. And here we also help them to do shopping in a market. We go to this market with them, and then we come back to demonstrate these things based on the toy cashier's machine. And we also have a catalog, so we can cut down these pictures and pretend you are going shopping in a grocery store and so on. And we also can take them to the park, and then we'll try to find this type of feathers that's identical with the right feather. So this is a treasure hunt game for children to go to the park. So of course, we social workers have to scout out this potential of this and even get the gadgets ready for children to come for a treasure hunt. And there's another game we did so in this water. This is a water game, especially for children with severe disabilities. When they are in water, they are totally relaxed. So they are very happy. They laugh out loud when they slide down this water slide. And then in the end, we have this sharing event. So the parents, the children, they come together to share what they have learned, what they have found. And altogether, the 8 to 9 parents, we had interview with 4 or 5 of them to have an in-depth discussion about what they have learned, what they believe they have accomplished. And the parents told us that from such activities, they gain the confidence about themselves. And this parent has 2 children who are already 15 years old or older, and then the 3rd child has such handicap. The mother was very frustrated, but now she told us that, from this group interaction, I have learned how to adjust my life. I go treasure hunting with the park, and then the parents learns to design the hiking trips based on these kind of techniques, so that the parents nowadays become a very positive parent / therapist / teacher's role in their interaction with the child. So this mother told me, I no longer find my child is very annoying because I enjoy the interacting with my child. And then and there was a parent, she told me, in the past, the social worker told me what to do and when to do something. And I just have to go and sign in and then sit down and then attend the class. But now we are told to do things, and then the social worker told us to communicate about what we want to do. So we become the master of our activities. So we have a way to get more out of such gatherings. And one of the parents also told me that she believes that she should allow the child to do more decisions, to make more decisions than just follow the mother's instruction. And then they also found ways to save money. 4 out of the 5 parents interviewed realized that they could actually save money by doing some very creative design around their life. And when we try to empower these parents, empower means to increase your self-evidence level, because for some of these parents of severe disabilities, and we don't just tell the parents to say what they think. We have to design some kind of a question, some kind of a discussion guide in order to pull out their thinkings, to help them to design the type of activities interacting with the children. And we also have to maintain the flexibilities, because for social workers, we have also learned that we are there to help the parents to improve the relationship with the children. We are not there to be the master of those activities. And here I would like to show you a film that is the overall looking back of our 18 months project. This was we filmed how they do the work in life, in real life. Going to the supermarket to shop for ingredients for the evening barbecue, because it's a moon gazing festival. So the mother would also offer some information to the child for the child to make a better selection on the shelf. But the title of this presentation is Becoming Your Child's Playmate, Becoming Your Child's Buddy. What are you doing? Painting. Okay, you could use your left hand. You could also try your right hand to hold the crayon. But there are other ways to do the painting. And this kind of attitude, keeping the child company attitude, encourage the child to explore all kinds of mental and physical capability of herself. And this is in the bathroom. So this is a demonstration telling the parents that you could do this. So you could, after it is done, you could just wash it off. But then it helps the child to exercise the muscles and also to do this fine muscle movement to improve the dexterity. And the child even go to school to teach other children what he has done in the bathroom. So this helps the child to work out the courage to do show and tell, because this child really appreciate, really enjoy this experience. So this is a demonstration about how to find activities in your everyday life to be your child's best buddy, best playmate. And then one of the parents told me, if the child plays with the therapist, the child will only have a memory of the therapist. But when I play with the child, then the child, when he sees the piece of toy, he will say, this is the one I play with my dad. So the father was very appreciative.
Thank you to all three speakers. May I ask all three speakers to join us up front? Ms. Liang has put in a lot of effort for her client to learn from games and also to receive therapy from learning. Early intervention was a topic I worked on in 1993. I introduced the approach back then, and now I'm glad to see that my juniors are applying this actively in the community. It was introduced from Hong Kong, Japan, and the USA into Taiwan. For example, for autism, there's a teaching program, and now there are lots of pedagogies that we have learned from Hong Kong. Of course, those are history. It's been 2 decades since early intervention was introduced. Now, for employment, Mr. Ma shared with us about recovery. For working with persons with disability, it was mostly focused on education, but later on we brought the employment, even as the assessment director in Hong Kong to give us training. This started from the E2+ Foundation, which I was involved in. So I started with early intervention and then employment. I put in a lot of effort into bringing this into Taiwan. And that helps put together the holistic approach for the person with disability. And now we are going into community placement. When I became a legislator in 2008, I helped promote that about community assistance. That is a brief introduction on the trajectory of how to helping the persons with disability in Taiwan. We also need to thank the frontline workers, our social workers, whether they are psychologists, social workers, physical therapists, various therapists. We all need teams, IDP, ISP. The entire process needs the collaboration of a team. Behind the team, the parents are the most important. Out of the 114 countries across the world, the parents play the highest role. Last week, we went to an II International Conference in Florida for the persons with disability, and the Parents Association from 114 associations are critical. They come together because they know best what their kids need. So that's a general trend in the world, and we need to continue working together. Mr. Liang brought a book. He said he has 6 copies. So the first 6 persons to ask a question get a copy as your gift. Director Liang works with those with mental disabilities. In Illinois, I saw at his center, I saw for the first time using exercise as a therapy for the mentally ill. In Taiwan, it's very difficult to set up a community for the mentally ill. We face a lot of resident protests all the time. So this is some of the historical problems we've run into. But in Hong Kong, I remember 20 years ago, they were already building shelters for the mentally ill. So I'm sure Director Liang has played a leading role in that. Okay, you get a copy as the first person you ask a question. Microphone for her. Please introduce yourself, your organization, your name. My name is Chen Jiying. I'm from Eden Foundation. I'm a social worker. My question is for David. How many of your members, in terms of percentage, have joined the hiking activity and have enhanced their capacity? Second question is, what is an indicator of a mentally ill who has changed because of participating in this event? For example, in terms of dosage requirement, or in terms of symptoms, changes in symptoms? What are the indicators?
Ms. Tan, thank you for the question. As I indicated in my presentation, we did this interview, and then so most of these are the qualitative achievements, but later we have some quantitative results. So these patients, they have all kinds of improvements. For example, there's a sleep indicator, or and their level of self-confidence and the dosage of medication. However, I don't have these specific numbers with me today, but overall, we have some quantitative results. But when they participate in these hikings, they have some intermediate goals, and so through the different attempts, so they don't achieve just the goal in one shot. Actually, we set this intermediate goals accomplished by at different phases. Then we also asked them, what's the reason you participate in this hiking? They said, well, it's because the staff encouraged me to participate. And besides, and when they participate in such a hiking, they found that this is, they don't have this fear about this. And because if they participate in other types of activities, they feel intimidated, they feel bewildered for the potential risk or potential danger involved. But these are specially designed hiking programs, so they feel safe, they feel the peace of mind to do it. So you were asking about the dosage, right? Whether the dosage is one of these performance indicator of these hiking programs. So Director Liang, as in my presentation, we have 3 midway houses. They do a different type of a program, different of a flow chart. So each midway house has 42 clients, and the other place we have the step of 26. So during the programs, when we promote this hiking trips, and they also increase the frequency of going out on hiking with us, because we could see the numbers going up. From they starting, they enter our programs in the beginning, and then we have done some evaluation. We found that they did improve in their frequency of the hiking, but there's 30% of them, there's no way to convince them to do some exercise, to do workout. 麦克风，所以说可能是由于时间关系啊，对那个中途宿舍的那个解释一下，就是它是一个实体呢，还是一个临时性的呢，还是他们是一个小组？就这一块不是太清楚，能再清楚一下。对。This midway house, this is a transitional service we offer. That is, we help them to recover. So they have a mental illness. After their emotion becomes stabilized, and then the psychiatrist, we send a reference letter to send them to the reference, to send them to this midway house. So they will be here for 2 to 3 years before they move on. So and we have this exercise team. We have this exercise program. There are different type of sports activities, such as balls, volleyballs, ping pong balls, and hikings, and badminton. There are many different types of sports activities for them to choose from to inspire them. But we found that hiking is very popular. We do so every month. And with a different level of difficulty, because right behind our midway house there is a park, on the hill, so they could also take on their own initiative to go out. So when you say midway house, which the resident midway house have their job, right, daytime job, yes, and then come back to sleep at night, yes. And then we are giving out the number 3 prize, the book. Good afternoon. I am a graduate student from Zhengzhi University. I also read a question yesterday. And I have 2 questions for the 2 speakers. Mr. Liang, you indicated the kind of a workout program helped them to participate or to get involved with the community. And then you also talk about risk management. I would like to know more about the risk management. And then there's the third presentation by Ms. Liang. You talk about this extracting oneself, the social worker extracting oneself from getting too much involved with the parents. So would you care to elaborate on that, the timing and the reason for that, extracting yourself? And then when we talk about this on the programs, they could get involved into these communities, so for them to be totally immersed into this community, really depending on the individual's unique characteristic, whether they could identify something for them to identify the kind of things they could contribute to this community. But there's one viewpoint, that is whether the people in the community can open up their heart, their arm to accept these people with special needs. And then the risk management is very crucial when we design those programs, because go hiking for these people with disabilities, there are all kinds of potential hazards involved, but for them to go out on hiking, there are all kinds of situations that may cause this injury. So we have to go out on scouting trips and then to know what kind of a situation may happen, what kind of scenario there might be, because they are relatively weak in capacity, in physical capacity, or they need a frequent drink of water and so on. So if they get a negative experience, unhappy experience once, then they would not want to participate in this hiking trip anymore. So, or if they share their negative experience, and then they will also decrease the motivation of others. So we have to do this risk management without our best to design the program, and also to watch out every moment during this hiking trips to sustain their motivation, to sustain their interest in going on hiking or other activities. And Ms. Liang, and there was also a question for you. Thank you for the question from this graduate student. Allow me to elaborate on my point. As I said in my presentations, that the social workers when and how to extract yourself from this parent-children relationship. We also reflect upon this, as I said earlier, how we help these parents to become a very active participant. So in the past, the parents were only here to listen to the class and then leave after the class. But now the parents are getting more involved. They will even think about how to design the programs, how to become very involved, very engaged in a discussion with you about how to improve the interaction with the children. But the parents take some learning, so we have to keep encourage the parents for them to get more involved, to get more self-motivated about designing activity for the children. But during the post-program interview, one of the parents said, without this the repeated reminder from the social worker, I would have forgot to send my videotape on the lines to share with other parents and children. So I didn't know there was a time limit for my comments. So with this kind of repeated encouragement of parents, so we need to maintain a relationship like partners. So even after we extract ourselves from the parents, children involvement, and then the parents themselves can have already have a good habit of doing a positive, doing very self-motivated activity with a child, and then the social worker can really extract himself or herself, because you don't want the parents to be relying on you too much, because then that's not empowerment. We just want to empower the parents so they could become independent. Let me see which one comes first. There.
I'm Chao Jie-chung, a graduate student from Tsinghua University Social Work. I also work at the Eden Clubhouse. My question is about employment for the mentally ill for Mr. Ma and Mr. Liang. Mr. Ma said the motivation and employable skills are critical. Have you run into cases where they are very capable but not very motivated? I have. It seems that I think, oh, you have great communication skills and other skills. Why do you not want to challenge yourself? Do you have cases like that, and how do you deal with them? Mr. Liang first, please. Just want to confirm your question. Very capable person, but not very motivated. There are different causes for this. Maybe it's because they are not confident in themselves. We have some midway house clients who graduated from college, but they are not motivated enough. It also has to do with their illness. There are some negative symptoms. I don't know if you know of them. If it's schizophrenia, there are some positive symptoms like illusion or dreams. But there are also some negative symptoms. They are not very interested. They don't have the motivation to make personal contact. So this may affect their motivation. And sometimes it also has to do with the drug they're taking. The drug makes them less motivated. So those who are unmotivated may be so because of different reasons. And sometimes the pay is too little. So it depends on the cause. How many copies of books have you given out? 4. Okay. Hello, I'm from Yunnan, Lianxin Heart to Heart. My name is Chen Weifan. My question, 2 questions for Liang and Mr. Ma. First one for Mr. Ma. In Taiwan, for the disabled and their rights, employment opportunity or protection, labor protection, are there applicable laws? The other question is for Ms. Liang. In my community, we also have kids with brain paralysis. When they participate in events, usually it's the mothers who are the carers, and in their daily lives as well. So I was pleasantly surprised by participation by the fathers in your photos. I want to know what you have done in order to motivate that. Oh, the time limit still applies? Okay. So we'll take that one last question. Okay, you're from Yunnan, China? Okay. Mr. Ma, please. One minute. In Taiwan, the mother also plays a heavier role. But we find when the fathers participate, we tend to encourage them more, and sometimes the instructor even give to the father, and the father feels like he has earned a gift for his child. So it's a good form of employment. And we had a sharing event one time where the father said, outside I am someone who can control all the time, but here in the classroom I can't even teach my own kid. So if there is a little interaction between the father and the child, we need to reinforce that. So we need to award any positive behavior, just like when we deal with the kids, we need to give a lot of positive reinforcement. So gender equality in the less common sense, the fathers also need to participate. Okay, to answer your question in short, in Taiwan there are regulations for both public and private businesses. There are percentage. For example, every 34 you need to have one disabled person in public sector, and in the private sector 1 in 67. Also we have labor law for daily, weekly or monthly minimum wage, and also maximum overtime hours. So there are regulations pertaining to this. Also, different levels of government also have their corresponding regulations. And it also varies from county to county. Great. With that, I'd like to thank you for your participation. We actually have another session. I thought we get to stick around in this room just with this session, but looks like we have a tight schedule, so thank you very much for taking part. Thanks to all the 3 speakers. Thank you, President Chen.
大家好，首先欢迎大家来参加我们这一场的讨论。那么我们这一场呢，总共有三个题目哈。那么对不起，我们只有应该3个题目吧。好，没关系，因为雅珍那边那个题目我的手上没看到。好，那么首先呢，我们第一场呢，是由中国陆德全副教授，他目前是在港专学院应用社会科学系。那么陆教授今天要发表的这个主题呢，是中港社会创新热潮对发展性社会工作的挑战与际遇。不知道陆教授是不是跟大家打个招呼？好，谢谢陆教授。那么我们接下来我们的第2个主题。
Thank you. The second topic is by Ms. Huang Li from China. She is currently chairman of Du Jianghui Heart Starting Point Charity Service Center. Her topic is a preliminary research on the transmission way of micro-social enterprises' social responsibility, taking Du Jiangyan Xinqicheng Disabled Caring Service Station as an example. A preliminary research on the transmission way of micro-social enterprise social responsibility, taking Du Jiangyan Xinqicheng Disabled Caring Service Station as an example. So please welcome Ms. Huang. For the third talk, we will have Chen Yazhen, trustee and founder of Aurora Social Enterprise. She's going to speak on the copy and chain of Taiwan social enterprise, case study of Aurora and Mana. Please say hello to everyone. the theme of this session is social enterprise. The three speakers each has 20 minutes to speak. We will also give you some reminders. So we're going to give you a reminder every 3 minutes, and we will give you 2 chimes as the last reminder. This session is scheduled to close at 4:40. So this is a reminder to myself. At 4:45, we will wrap up this session. So at 4:25, we will start wrapping up the Q&A. So now, without further ado, please put your hands together for Professor Lu. Good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to thank Eden Foundation for inviting me. Eden started with developmental social work in the first edition, and then after the second edition, which is a critical event across both sides of the strait in China, Taiwan, and Hong Kong. The topic of my study in this presentation is multifold. We look at Hong Kong, China, and Taiwan about this new wave of social innovation. At the end of September, we had a summit forum in Hong Kong on social enterprise, and there are several events that have to do with social innovation and social enterprise. In China, this idea started a dozen of years ago, and now every month there is 1 or 2 various events in China. Taiwan is no exception. I think last month, Furen University ran an event, an international conference on social enterprise. Social innovation and its surrounding activities and this wave of thinking have a certain impact on social charity and social work, as well as the civil society. What is the impact? I think the scope and strategy of social innovation are very similar to that of developmental social work. We talk about empowerment. It also emphasizes social justice. In some ways, social innovation also talk about community-based. So I wonder if these two have a potential for collaboration. Based on that, I look at some examples in Hong Kong and China, since I'm not familiar with Taiwan's case. So we look at the model, the backward, and the model, the background, and the trajectories of development. And I look at how this helps us with social innovation and some potential conclusions in theory or practice. First, I start off with a Hong Kong case study. In Hong Kong, this started in 70s and 80s. Of course, they didn't term it as social innovation. It was a result of dissatisfaction with conventional shelter work, protective work. There were a lot of social work organizations, and they have their own employment factories. So once the disabled persons complete their training, they are still not sure they can find a job in a society. So we try to explore a more market-based, market-driven approach in order to help the disabled person become part of the society. The second drive is an exploration in the mid-90s on social innovation. Hong Kong and China saw a quick merge, and that is similar to what's happened in Taiwan. A lot of the industries were moved to China, and there was massive unemployment in the middle-aged men and women. In Taiwan, you are probably familiar with this because you are still in the midst of it. So at that time, social innovation also explores social economy and social enterprise and their possibility, their potential of creating jobs for these impacted persons. So there are some labor organizations that ran co-ops, and they try to use economics to help with their employment. The third drive comes from what's called the new the reform in public administration. This was a post-Asian financial crisis phenomenon. There was a lack of tax income, so government, due to shortage in funding, they try to find a new way of providing social services. They ask if the service is effective. The question of reform in public administration had been long existing, but with the 1997 and 2003 financial crises, this was especially prominent. So public policies were impacted by the government's poor fiscal health, and they try to use social enterprise to make up for the shortcoming of public services. So this brings us into the policy-driven stage of social innovation. In 2005, the Hong Kong government set up a committee for helping the poor. As I said, there was a 1997 financial crisis followed by another one, so this committee became a response. Now, the idea was to have a district partnership program that enhances self-reliance. So there are district-based and community-based organizations founding social enterprises that create jobs. Also, the focus was on basic community building. In 2012, I call this the reinforcement stage. In 2012, the Hong Kong government set up another version of the Committee for Helping the Poor. So they expanded from social enterprise into social innovation. So it's no longer just enterprises. It talks about innovation and also about three-way collaboration to reduce poverty. So in conclusion, there are two stages to social innovation in Hong Kong. The first one is going from heterogeneity into homogeneity. So it used to be diversified social innovation, and then it moved into a homogeneous definition of social enterprise. And now we are seeing a reversal. Once again, we go from homogeneous social enterprise into homogeneity, a different interpretation of social innovation. In China, we can classify two types of social work. The first is de facto social work done by NGOs. And the second part is institutionalized government-run social work institutions. So in 1995, this was the start of what these de facto or pseudo social work institutions. That's a first milestone. And in 2008, we saw another milestone with the Wenchuan earthquake. And we saw a lot of grassroots development in NGOs. So there were some development in resources, but not as much support from the government. But starting in 2008, when we talk about innovative management, we start to see policies identifying and acknowledging the meaning of social work organization. And Eden also founded a chapter in Chengdu of Sichuan. However, we have a predicament in north and south. We see developed countries offering funds to support NGOs in developing countries. However, there are a lot of problems. For example, you have to match with their project nature. And also recently, the Chinese government has exercised tight control on international NGOs. So starting on January 1st next year, it is hard for international NGOs to provide funding to Chinese NGOs. I think Eden may face the same problem next year. So in the last few years, we see some changes in conditions. Social innovation and public services are changing in China. In the last few years, especially around 2008, around the Wenchuan earthquake, we saw massive development in in NGOs, and then we see reform becoming urgent in the public sector. For example, we saw some foundation who raised funds but did not put the funds toward actual social services. Or we also saw some poster persons or the spokesperson who endorse the events, but actually they get paid a lot for endorsing the charity event. So this may be similar to what's happening in Taiwan and Hong Kong. As an NGO or an NPO, if you just run government projects, you may lose your own autonomous nature. And so we need to think about this, how we can leverage the impact of social innovation in order to achieve autonomy. So these are some of the problems faced by the NPOs. If they are receiving, if their funding from international NGOs is dropping, then how can they achieve development? Another problem is social service in China has only been developing for 10 years. So they're only in its infancy. And if they just follow the foundation model, which focuses on design, mass communication, and finances, rather than thinking about working with the users. The reason I say this is because a lot of organizations in Hong Kong and China are more commercial oriented. So we need to try and find a model that concentrates on the interest of those we serve. So I throw out some of these issues I try to address them in my presentation. The first one is developmental social worker as a social entrepreneur. From the goals of social work and social innovation, it seems we have common goals. However, we also have some biases of social innovation. In social innovation, talks about a lot of cross-disciplinary collaboration. However, for NPOs and also social organizations, it becomes just a kind of co-optation. If they give you the funding, do they end up leading your project as well, or do you lose autonomy? And the second thing is the American way of social innovation emphasizes bigger is always better, which goes against our original idea of small is beautiful. Thirdly, when we hear about promotion of social innovation, it's very much a lot of heroism of someone who graduated from Harvard, give up a well-paying job and goes into a countryside and help reform and build a primary school. So it doesn't really solve the problem. How many Harvard or Yale graduates do we need in the countryside to solve our problems? Or rather, should we foster talents in the local communities instead? The fourth bias is to avoid political issues. To skirt around political issues, it doesn't talk about financial reform or other political aspects. With that, the perspective and strategy of social innovation should include various strategies from collaboration to social entrepreneurship, so entrepreneurship within an institution. So with that, I draw some conclusion. The first one is the relationship between developmental social work, social work in the macro point of view, NPOs, NGOs, and civil movement organizations, and the relationship between all those. There are some conflicts among all these, so we need to think about how to revitalize community organizations and give them some room to move. So this is about grassroots democracy and empowerment. So this is what Hong Kong faces. In China, it's even more complex. They face a dictatorship environment. So in the hegemony background, it's very hard to have room for social innovation. In Hong Kong and Taiwan, it's much easier, but perhaps we can use social innovation or social economics to empower grassroots organizations in order to find some space of maneuver for social work. Thirdly, I talk about a composite model that combines social work with livelihood and economics. I mentioned that a shift in economical structure created poverty in Hong Kong and lack of employment. So economics is very important in alleviating this. The problems are even more serious in China, especially in the rural villages. The problem we face is social workers are unprepared in leveraging economic development, especially using developmental social work as an empowering platform. There's a lot of conflict in here. We need to fight against individualism in the market economy, also human rights. We can run into a lot of resistance. We have to fight against the mainstream, and also we need to help our clients to fight against all these resistance in the mainstream labor market. Also, we need to learn about how to develop participatory management, co-ops, and share our ideas, strategies, and skills. Fourthly, a lot of developmental social work is a kind of composite system. This means it's not a singular social enterprise, or it doesn't have a single source of funding, for example, just from the government. Some may raise funds from foundations, and some found their own businesses. So there are different goals and different organizations, and how we manage that situation is a main challenge. I will not go into this in too much detail since it's in your handbook already. Now, lastly is to ensure autonomy and self-decision and motivation in the social enterprise. So as I said, the social innovation and social enterprise was born out of the historical context I just outlined. We are trying to find autonomy in social work by using social innovation. We see a lot of social work organizations in Hong Kong. They just simply try to obtain project funding instead of thinking about the ultimate goal, which the ultimate goal being to foster social capital and integrated community economy. In China, there are NPOs which need to try and not rely too much on the government or on international NGOs. For them to gain more autonomy is critical.
Thank you, Professor Lu, for such insightful presentations. I understand you must have questions for him, but let's save our questions to later. And the next presenter is Huang Li. She's from China, and she represents this social enterprise that was formed after this Wenchuan earthquake. And so her presentation is about this incubator she had helped founded. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I was quite relaxed in the beginning, but because the four speakers before me, they already made very wonderful presentations, so make me feel those are a hard act to follow. But still, allow me to share with you how to pass on these social responsibilities of micro social enterprises. In the beginning, let me talk about this type of micro social enterprise, how it was formed And then the second part, I will be talking about what we do in this social enterprise. Number 3, I would use 2 real examples to elaborate on the passing on the social responsibilities at micro social enterprises. Okay, so the source, the origin of the social enterprise, I myself could be considered a success story. I know Professor Guo, you are familiar with my background. Before 2008, I was a very happy, thriving young girl, and with a total ability to use my limbs. Because of this earthquake, there was May 12th of 2008. All the 4 limbs, only one is left. So thank goodness, God keep my right hand, which is the dominant arm that I use. And I also have to thank a lot of social workers who gave me the support, who also inspired me to continue working. Because back then, when I was in the hospital, I always wonder what's the use to live on. But then, because of the support from the social workers, I was able to be reborn. I gave myself a new lease on life. I felt I have this rebirth. So perhaps you could also think about what's the purpose of your life, what's the meaning of your life. In particular, because you are social workers, I know the social work you are engaged in typically are very challenging, and so you may wonder about that from time to time. So I had to overcome a lot of psychological obstacles, and finally I've come through. So I must say I was very, very grateful to all the social workers before and after this 2008 earthquake. Thank you. Thank all of you for me to be reborn so that I could be here to talk to you. And with the support from the social workers and the volunteers, I was able to attend a therapy in Hong Kong. And over there in Hong Kong, I got to meet many frontline workers in the social enterprises or the supervisors and the leaders behind the scenes. And in March 9th of 2010, with all this learnings that I have accumulated from the 2 years before that, and I started this new workshop. It's called I call it the service stations. And over there we do a job training, we do employment placement, we do a rehab, we do a psychological consultation. Because I conducted a survey in this Dujiangyan city, and I saw a lot of fellow citizens, and they have all kinds of needs. Because I myself now with disabilities, but there are other people who also become disabled after this earthquake, so they will have their individual unique need to continue with their life in order to thrive in the rest of their lives. So over there, I believe that one has to have a job, some kind of employment in order to maintain their motivation. So many of them aspire to have a job, and that's what I do to help them. And this place is categorized as an incubator, and our social prize is an incubator. And why I decided to do so, because all kinds of social organizations have a question they have to answer. Number one is that where do you get your funding? And so in the beginning, I tried to do one project and then try to raise some fund. How did I raise the fund? In the beginning, we did some handicraft work and then sold them to the people on the street, or we get people to come to visit our shop to buy this. And then I was able to raise 80% of this funding through this kind of handicraft products. And then another 10% came from donation. And then another 10% was from this by soliciting with organizations or big bodies. One day there was a social worker from Hong Kong came to see me because 8 years ago interviewed me. So 8 years have passed, and then she came back again to interview me and asking me, how is your funding situation? So I told her 3 types of funding, and then she asked me whether this structure or this allocation of this funding have changed. I say yes. I was very proud to tell her that the allocation of funding changed because in this year 2011, we had a surplus of $100,000, and back then I felt this is not enough to go on. So I needed projects to and besides, what can I do with this $100,000, because I still have to pay my social workers. I have to pay them salaries. So I made a very bold decision back then. Because before that I was running a business, so I think perhaps I could also start up some kind of a business with other friends of a disability. Although at that time, of course, we didn't know about the term, there's a social enterprise, but I went to this city government because Dujiangyan, this particular city, was severely damaged at the earthquake. And there is an area, a community that's set up by the government, and there are a lot of shops readily available, and they are asking people to come to do business in those shops. So we went to register and to compete, to bid for those shop spaces. And there were also other business owners who are regular, who don't have disabilities. So we were able to bid on these spaces. And this place, we got 340 square meters, and each the rent was $40 Chinese dollars per square meters. And so we rented this place, and as you can see, and the title I said job training, but actually what we did was the entire social enterprise, because here we did a leather goods maintenance, leather goods service, because these leather goods tend to be expensive and they last a long time. So regular maintenance is a very desirable skill for the owners. And we also help people to learn about this sewing and make handicraft products. So embroidery, and this was set up by Hong Kong social enterprises. They help us to set up this embroidery workshop, and they came to help us set up these places, these facilities that we could make embroidery products. And then the second type of work we do, this is the leather goods service, and this is the most outstanding items we have been able to offer. And then this girl, she has a certain handicap, and then this girl, after 1 year's training, she herself runs a shop, one of our branch shops. I will show you the photo later. And this young man has worked here for 2 to 3 years, and he got a spine injury, so he had to move around in a wheelchair. And this is a handicraft shop. We do this work with putting together this string those beads together. As you can see, the people around this table has a different type of disability, and there is a girl, and she is the volunteers from the university. So so all 4 years in universities, she helped me out to organize these beads workshops. So these are the products, the result of our work. And then this sells very well in one of the scenic spots, tourist attraction spots in Dujiangyan City. And embroideries, it has a very high cost and very labor intensive. So instead of going out to sell, it does not sell well. So we did some a different type of products that's more affordable and which sells very well. And this is a new line of products also with this support of this university. And this is the kind of small handbags. And we also have the embroidery series of this kind of small handbags. And these are the members of our workshop. They all of them have spine injuries, and this one is the teacher, the instructor, because the volunteer, the student volunteer left and moved on, and so we hire a teacher, and she's very good. She's very good. He also, this is a teacher who use clay to make all kinds of small objects. And this is, again, one of the programs that we did with self-funding. And this year, we put this kind of a clay porcelain products to the hotels, because hotels, Dujiangyan is a famous tourist attraction. And so we are convinced that hotel owners are saying perhaps you could display some of our products in your lobbies, and we try to control the price at the kind of a range that their hotel visitors would be interested in buying. And so this is also a new venue, new channels for our product. And this girl, she is deaf and mute. And before she came to our organization, there were other groups that are other like groups for deaf and mute, and they other groups promised her good job, good jobs, high-paying jobs. But those are like bordering on crimes. And this girl came to our group and then has run off a couple of times. But then she was moved and was broken in by our owner. So she has been very stable now in our shops for 3 years. Over here, I have shown to you the different types of work we do in our social enterprise. Now allow me to share with you the characteristic of our social enterprises. Number one, it was supported by the government. In our communities, we have products, milk shops, but there is also other supermarket in our neighborhood who also sells milk. So our price is not competitive. But later on, there's one government official came to our place and then proposed that why don't you do as a utility bill payment station? That is because people need to pay their utility bills, and then we could we have this IT machines, computers set up for people to pay their utility bills, and then we have to pay the rent still, and the local government also set up a new policy saying if you have this enterprise which is has a good performance and also has this a flagship result, and then you could save on your rent. So we were able to get some additional funding. But we continue to negotiate with the government for this funding. As you may know, in Chengdu, the kind of social enterprise that's what we have are getting a lot of support from the government in terms of funding, in terms of venue, in terms of other type of subsidies. So I believe the funding will come through very soon. And our place is there in this community, so we serve the residents of the community. And many of these local citizens, once they learn about our service, they would specifically take a taxi to come to see us. I mean, from a far distance away. But because we are now as famous, so sometimes when people complain, this also become well known. And you see the publicity comes with its liabilities. And then we also try to teach people to fish rather than give people the fish to eat. So we have to do outreach programs, and we do this incubator programs in order to expand our influence. And then we do customized program because each person come to our programs that requires an analysis or diagnosis. We have to also cater to this person's unique interest and capability in order to design a program to do it. And this child has a cerebral palsy. He was 26 years old. And the mother told me that, well, over the past 26 years, he just stay home and sleep all day and all night. But now, ever since he came to our place, he become very active and was engaged in many activities. So he no longer just sleep the time away. And this is a incubator to do a leather goods shop, the leather goods service shop. And before we did this incubator work, we certainly need some kind of assessment. We have to figure out whether this person can run a shop or can start up his own business. And some people have their own capabilities if they are able to really start up a new place, a new shop. We help them to do so rather than assign him a job in someone else's shop. And we also look for all kinds of new forms to help the other people with a disability to, and some people also say you need to help each person in individual way, because you need to get a person to identify with your purpose. And instead of waiting for them to say they want to go out and become independent, you could just do a little work and then try to nudge them in that direction of becoming financially independent. Well, I have 2 cases to share with you, and with a very limited time, allow me to quickly go over these 2 examples. We have 2 models. Business one is that to get a job, get a position in our incubators, and the other is for them to go out to do new startups. And in their new startup shops, they also need to hire people with a disability, and they could also use our license, meaning as if they are our franchise shop, and then we continue to get the support. However, they have this responsibility of training free of charge any new participant with disabilities, because I feel that because I am very grateful to the previous support I get in those kind of disability programs. So I want to be able to spread out this kind of the the influence and this kind of a benefit that they have gained from the government. So once we receive such support, such service, I want to be able to spread, to pass on, to further distribute such services, because this is like a branching out of your social responsibility, because this help to spread the load, and then more and more people will be carrying this load, and more people will be able to enjoy the benefit of such programs. So now let's watch this video. This girl just came to our program. In the beginning, she just cried all the time whenever she just. Before I came here, I stayed home and like a piece of furniture. And because I did not have any income, I have very low self-esteem and always got into fight with my family members. But after I came here, I was able to come out of my cocoon, and now I'm a very independent. I'm self-reliant financially, so I want to do more work like this to help other people with a disability, and also to walk out their home, because these people, they still have all kinds of potentials to be explored, to be fulfilled. So I want to let more people know about this disability. May I have time with another film? And this is the Xiao Zhen. She started up this new shop by herself. As you can see, there's four guys in the photo with her. Some are employees, some are the co-owners. I was able to fulfill my dream. I was able to start up this new shop, and my shop is located right here, and in this Happiness Boulevard, and I'm able to take in a number of trainees, and together I have 4 trainees in my shop, in this leather goods service shop. And now I am able to help others. Well, previously I received a lot of help from other people, so I'm here to offer this kind of a leather goods service shop and become very independent and become very fulfilled. So I would like to spread these ideas around. So with that, I conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Huang Li, for sharing the case study with us. Next, I would let us put our hands together for Chen Yazhen from Aurora Social Enterprise to talk about copy and chain of Taiwan social enterprise. Thank you, Ms. Huang. It seems we always have to this kind of we also meet in this kind of occasion. I also want to thank Eden and NTU for inviting me. This is learning about social enterprise. As a social worker myself, I'm very glad to see Ms. Huang's sharing. Although she took a longer time, but mine is going to be shorter, so it should be fine. My name is Chen Yazhen. The organization I work for is called MANA Organic Life Association, and under MANA, we founded the first social enterprise called Aurora Social Enterprise. All the video you will see are taken at Alishan, Mountain Alishan, where I work. I envy Ms. Huang because in Sichuan, just in Sichuan alone, they have 33 million, no, 70 million people. So it's the entire Germany. Entire German population. However, I work in the Alishan district, and there are only 6,000 of them, and of them, the indigenous persons only account for half. So 3,000 persons I work with. However, it's just as scenic as Sichuan. Whether you are engaged in social work or social enterprise, I think it very much had to do with your personality. I enjoy being with people. And both my strength and shortcoming is I like to do what others don't do. So I think for me, whatever is fun is great. It's not just about having fun myself, but also about helping others. So in the last 26 years in my social work, those are very important to me and close to my heart. Over the 26 years in being engaged in social work, starting 2 years ago from working with victims of the Typhoon Morakot, I started working with indigenous communities. My social worker background has trained me in thinking that there's no one set facet of social work. You have to adapt yourself all the time. And it's a matter of problem solving. Also, the goal that we have with our client is to leave the client one day. We want them to become independent. Social work is, you have to live like the person you're working with. So I tell people my work is to have fun because I work with the indigenous people who are great at having fun. In my job, one of the most important thing is because indigenous people take up only 2% of Taiwan's population, which is 530,000 persons. They also live in more remote area. So a lot of problems they face is because they're relatively poor. I believe poverty deprives people of their rights to fulfill their dream. So this is a starting point of my social work. I believe social work is a combination of socialism and capitalism. We should have socialism in our heart and in our brain. So I don't remember if it was 2007 or 2008. There was a magazine that interviewed us and called us the compassionate capitalists, and we founded the Aurora Social Enterprise Company. Our mission was not just about how much money we make, but more about how much money our farmers make. Our goal is to improve people's value and ability, create a just society, and promote eco-balance and eco-friendliness. This sums up the work that we've been done in the past years. We take stock of our resources and ensure eco-balance. We have farmers who provide contract produce to companies. We want to make sure the future indigenous generation can pick up where their parents left off. So we want to pass on the legacy. We do what's the tape. So we send indigenous kids to Philippines to learn English. And in the process, we want to ensure consumers, producers, and entrepreneurs all gain their respective goals, which is philanthropy, hope, and changing the world. In 2011, we started CAPE project. This doesn't seem relevant to our social enterprise. However, social enterprise has the greatest mission in building family. So starting in 2011 already, we already worked on the top A project. Of all our projects, there is not a single one that's free of charge. This project also doesn't receive any, it receives support from the government, but we need to apply every year. Most of our parents need to shoulder half of all the costs. After running Top A for 5 years, I also like to share some problems that we identified in running the Top A project. We find that our students have a very high rate of being admitted into college. Our students range from 10 to 17 years old. And we assess those who started from the first year. It seems there was a very high dropout rate in our students. At the end of 2015, we have this other project. On the west side of the central mountain range, we grow a lot of betel nut trees. And you know that betel nut tree is not very good for soil conservation. Also, you need to use a lot of pesticides, so it's not good for health. So we started raising chicken below the betel nut tree after experimenting with a few other methods. And we leave the betel nuts there with harvesting them. So instead, our farmers gain their livelihood from the chicken and from the eggs. So we are starting a different livelihood and different source of income. Around 2012 September, about the same period, we ran this project. We worked together with Furen University. At Furen, we opened up Manasseh Cafe in Furen University. The reason we started this cafe is because when we were working in Alishan Mountain, our products were mostly B2B, business to business. But it seems our distributors always ask for a good-looking product, but don't want to give us good price. So there are some products that we cannot sell to them. So we decided to use our own products by opening up a restaurant. So we have bread and we also have our produce. So we make sandwiches in our cafe. I'm trying to make the video come out. Can you show me how to play the video? Manasseh Cafe is set inside the student cafeteria of Furen University. The founder has taught in indigenous communities, and he finds that it's very important to ensure livelihood in the indigenous community. Manasseh helps build knowledge base and increase productivity in indigenous communities. And we try to promote organic produce from the communities and also promote education of indigenous culture. We set up the social enterprise Manasseh Cafe in order to effectively use some of our excellent produce. In the future, we would like to spread the idea of social enterprise to more people out there. This was prepared by Fujian University students. Starting in 2016, we founded the Mana Organic Cultural and Livelihood Facilitating Association. I'm trying to get the pointer working here. Okay, it looks like I was pointing it the wrong way. In order to help our indigenous products gain exposure in the market, we founded the Aurora Social Enterprise. This was the first instance that social enterprise was used in the company name itself. There is a different context, different tax structure for Aurora. So for social enterprise, so we set up a separate social enterprise called the Indigenous Drive. In the future, we want to try to have the next generation pick up on this endeavor. So we founded the Manase Cafe in order to deal with the limitation of B2B. And we also, for this cafe, we set up the Fu Yuan Social Enterprise. However, 3 months out of the year, the cafe has to be closed along with the school. So out of those 3 months, we go to the Executive Yuan government building. And in July and August every year, we set up a shop there. And one of the shops opened up. So we took the opportunity to occupy the shop because we were invited by a major corporation called Uni-President. And actually, we didn't have enough manpower at that time. But since the opportunity came up, we seized it. Because I'm ambitious, so I want to set up this new social enterprise. So this started August this year, and August last year, and we ran it for 2 years, and now we have another shop front, so we expanded our shop. At the same time, this year in Alishan Mountain, 10 years after we have worked there, we also expanded our service. We did a lot of training and organizational training. So Aurora works directly with the locals. But in the future, we want them to be able to do this independently. So we started a social enterprise called 一起州. In Taiwan, we enjoyed success with social enterprise. So with the Typhoon Haiyan damage in Philippines, we were invited to duplicate our social enterprise in the Philippines. We used the Manase model and tried to duplicate it in the Philippines. The total population of indigenous persons in Taiwan is 530,000, and actually we have the same anthropological source as the Philippine indigenous people. So we feel an affinity with the indigenous community there. We believe we can contribute with our experience. Our farmers were the ones that went there to work with the locals. However, if where the expertise is lacking in our own our enterprises, farmers, we ask other experts to provide the expertise. So this is what I call the 一起州 the Mana Zhou Cafe social enterprise. We also had a baking training program. We hire a total, if I remember correctly, of 60% indigenous employees in our social prize. This is only the start. In the future, we like to integrate local ecology and also the local millet wine, millet rice wine. Also, we would also like to shrink the distance between the farm and the table. We like to promote consuming local products. Lastly, I'd like to share some thoughts. Our idea is to ensure the outcome is constant, but the time is the only variable. So if you want to grow a forest, you start by one tree. No one knows what the future looks like until you fill it with dreams. So in the future, I don't know what Aurora or Mana are going to become, but the key is for more people to participate in our model, and we call it entrepreneurship. Thank you. May I now invite the three speakers to the panel? We need to close the session at 4:45 and join the plenary session for a closing ceremony. So we now have roughly 13 minutes to present your questions to the three panelists. May I remind you to first start off by introducing yourself, your organization, and your own name. And please limit your question to 1 minute. I will give you a reminder at 30 seconds by chiming the bell. Once you hear 2 chimes of the bell, it means it's time to wrap up. So the floor is open now. Please raise your hand, and we will bring over the mic. My question is for Professor Lu. You studied social innovation in China and Hong Kong or in the social work field. You said, do you think social innovation started because of certain policy? Because the topic is on developmental social work, about social innovation, and also you mentioned social enterprise, so I'd like to know the context. And I also like to know your definition of social enterprise. The other question is for the other 2 panelists. You both talk about social work. So in your organization, what kind of role does social work play for Dujiangye or Aurora?
Who would like to respond to the question first? Mr. Lu. In fact, when we talk about this social innovation or social enterprise, this kind of a terminology are actually it's an international language. When you say social enterprises, there was back in the 1980s or 1990s, this was already an emerging concept that talk about the third way or the third avenue. So Hong Kong people, Hong Kong NGOs adopted those languages, and then later they have evolved into the political language. And then how much does it have to do with the social works. As I said earlier, in the beginning, there's these, the social workers, they took on this initiative, and then they saw this the people in need, and then begin to adopt these ideas to offer their service, and then later on this become a mainstream thinking and to be promoted. And then later on, the government adopt those language for their policy making, and they would become something that we could use to get the government funding using this kind of a terminology. So that's how the language evolved. And thank you for your question. I feel that we, as social workers, play a very crucial role in social enterprises. We could be there as a company. We could offer guidance. We could offer support. So company, guidance, and support. I wonder if you would like to respond to this question as well. And thank you for the question. Before that, allow me to say something. You are asking about social workers in our organization, what kind of role they play, or you using my perception about what role the social workers should play. You're asking about my organization, current situation, or you're asking about this ideal situation. As I said earlier, I believe social work is an art. So however social workers resolve the problem and look for the resources, these are my target, just identify the resources to resolve the questions. So I don't say they should play a certain role. I just try to resolve the questions. So in the Mana, when we wanted to set up this place as a social group, I was rejected because they said I am not a social worker, so I cannot set up a social enterprise. So back then, in those in the legal framework, they say because I'm not a social worker, I'm not eligible to start up a social enterprise. However, with this the concept of this social enterprise is being accepted, being widespread, and then gradually maybe these legal requirements will be different because the concept, the evolution of the concept in the future. But basically, we do this kind of work. It's very similar to this social works, and we have to compete in the market with other private entities. So it really depends on the kind of situation we are in. And with this set of a conference, we have this Professor Midgley here, and yesterday in this keynote speeches, he already explained that this kind of a developmental social work has already been incorporated into the curriculum. And somebody asked whether this will become an important mission or important work within these organizations, whether this become a duty of the social workers in Taiwan, in China, or in Hong Kong. And I believe this will be decided by the people who are involved in this discipline, in this field, because all these participants, all these people who are doing the work, and their perception, their idea will change how people use this term. Allow me to offer some response to that, because I also work at cultivating social workers. I also work with some of this the international organization, and because although I'm not this social worker per se, but because their organization do a charity work, so the people there are considered social workers. And then you also asked me the social development in heart. And so you are a social worker in heart. although because of a capitalist framework, and you may not be recognized as a social worker in your title. However, there are certain tensions, and there are also certain struggles in people's work. Some people also have a new term called the green social work to do environmental work. And so when we promote this social enterprise, how do you do the work while you are a social worker in heart, but then you want to also use some of the market-oriented strategies to expand the business. And this is not what I can decide personally. I work with a team, and then I have partners who used to be entrepreneurs who have been engaged in the business, real business. So in the past 10 years, our organization, our teams had a lot of discussion, a lot of debate about this, which way to go. Because I'm NGO, you are business, you're private sector, so we have to find a road, and that both of us want to march on to, but we have a different philosophy about how to proceed. But then you need a mutual trust. Without mutual trust, you cannot move forward. So there has been a lot of debate, a lot of back and forth discussions. We found out that we have the same mission, we have the same target, we have the same goal, just that we have a different approach to this. So when you ask me about the tension, I would say tension is always there, just that how you face the tension, how you resolve the tension. There are two people raising their hand, so this gentleman first. Good afternoon. I am a social worker. My name is Wu Jiansheng. I'm a social worker with the Eden Foundation. I have a question to Mr. Zheng and Mr. Huang. And when we do this, when we try to start a new business, it is very difficult to start from zero. And then when we do this social enterprise to enter the market, do you see any advantage by calling yourself a social enterprise? Or what kinds of advantage or benefit do you get, or what kind of a challenge or obstacle would you face if you call yourself a social enterprise as versus a regular enterprise, a private enterprise? Your question is asking about what kind of advantage do you get when you try to call yourself a social enterprise going into the market. In reality, there is no advantage. Advantage means if I can find the people, find the market, find the customers, and find the money. So social enterprises, in the short term, there is no advantage, but in the long term, there is. For example, let me talk about obstacles. Let me talk about challenges first. If you don't have enough cash flow, then you will not be able to last long. And if you don't last long, then you won't be able to let people become aware of you, and then you lose that advantage. But in the long term, if you can sustain long enough, then we expand from 1 to 2 to 3 shops to 2, and then people ask you to, if you want to open up a new shop somewhere else. So we need to be able to sustain long enough. So in the beginning, we tell people we want to have a shop here, and then they will evaluate you with any of this kind of new startups, and then they will wonder if you are going to you get closed down in 3 months, and then because they don't want you to close down in 3 months because they will be looking for new tenants. So, but this one, they come to invite us to go in, and then once we had the first shop, and the second or the third shop was out of invitation. So because we sustain long enough, we have this awareness in people's mind, and then your product has to be good. You have to be able to compete in terms of quality, and because the price is a secondary, but you have to be able to compete to stand out by quality. Allow me to offer my own experience, and this is my personal experience. The social enterprise has the following advantage. Number one, we have disabilities. Many people say people with a disability cannot open up new business. But say if you use this as a specialty, and so people will come to your shops, in particular just to buy or to use your service, even though they are far away. So they would want to come to use your service, to buy your stuff. And then the other thing is that we start up small, very small. It's a micro organization. And this year, in China, this the macro economy is bad. We are also under this kind of a threat of this overall decline of macro economy, and they say the sales of revenue has dropped by 1/3 compared to last year. However, because you do make this by your handicraft, you make this personally, so you don't have to buy, you don't have to invest a lot of money to buy the product, so you relatively okay. You do not lose money that way. And then when we do this shops, I always try to negotiate a better rent with this landlord. And many of these landlords, they appreciate our unique situation, so they will offer us a discount in rent. And we, social enterprise, is the same as the regular enterprise. We have to be able to compete on the market and to see if our product, our service will be acceptable by the market, by the consumers. Okay, we have the last few minutes. I am a social worker, so my name is Wu Jianwei, and I have questions for Ms. Huang and Ms. Chen. And after listening to your presentations, how your organization evolved and how you negotiate with the government, I found all this experience are very realistic and very pragmatic. And as Ms. Huang, you thought about this. There was one point you asked yourself about, what should I do with the rest of my life? I would like to hear what kind of a thought you came up after thinking those. And then a question for Ms. Chen. You work in this Ali Mountains with this indigenous tribes to do this kind of work, and then you work on this for 10 years. How do you find there's a resilience?
Personally, for me, the meaning of life is the following: to be happy and live a valuable life, life with value. And happiness and value are something that need to be defined by every one of you. And I believe they are probably very similar for those social workers in the audience and myself. But specifically, I will leave yourself to find the answer. I am a very faithful Catholic, so that's part of my drive. Also, it's my family factor. At home, my mom believes that everyone is equal. I believe that everyone else should be able to live the same kind of life I live. So these three reasons are my drive. Another critical thing is everyone working with me are very smart. I'm not very smart at all. I had terrible marks at entry exam at college. But I really think there's a lot of fun here in my work. It's not boring. And also when you see people's eyes beaming, you feel that the difficulties are very minor in the sense of achievement. So when I discuss the next step with my partner, if I hear from this very smart partner that he thinks it's very fun, then I know whatever I pitch to him will work. So having fun is my Bible. I guess it's funny answer. What a delightful conversation we've had with these three panelists. Once again, please thank them for this fruitful discussion. May I now ask you to move to the ground